Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens. Ask me almost anything. My name is Glenn Gers, and I come to you Monday through Friday, if I can make it, at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Most of the time, I am doing these live streams to show you the step-by-step writing project where I'm writing a script, letting you watch. But now and then, I take a full hour to answer questions that have been submitted to me. If you want to ask me a question, but you are not watching live, you can do that. You just go to writingforscreens.com and click on the Contact Me button, and you'll be able to contact me. It'll open a little window. You can write me an email. I will answer by email and possibly here. And so that's what today we are going to do, a sort of interesting one, because I'm just going to do one topic for the entire hour. I'm going to talk about movies and shows and some books and plays, which are particularly interesting in terms of how they reveal or explore a character. It was a question that was asked a while back. Hello, this is Kitschy. And that's a big topic. It's very hard. So it's very important. Let's just talk about some of this, what we're going to get into here, because these are just some personal favorites. They are not necessarily required viewing. They are not all that you could look at. There's plenty of, I've already in the past few minutes, just when I was getting ready for this, I thought of about 50 that I forgot to put on the list. They're not all great. They're just things that I found interesting or provocative or exciting in some way. They may have only reached me. They won't necessarily reach you. They may be flawed. Very often they are. Most things are. They may be dated. I'm dated. They may be disturbing or not your thing. And that's okay. You do not have to watch these. I am just saying that these are things that when somebody asked me, what would you say is an example of revealing or exploring character? I thought, that's an interesting topic. And Ace Aristocrat agrees. Hello, 99 Precinct. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through this list. There's many, many, many other titles that I have forgotten or neglected to put on the list, or just I don't know about, and maybe you know them and I don't. Things could easily be on this list. They're just my things that provoked me. So let's get right to it. I would be remiss if I did not start with something that I do think is great, which is my movie Disfigured. This is a little ultra low budget indie that I made about 12 years ago now, maybe even longer, 14, 15 years ago. But it's a little character drama. It's an exploration of an anorexic woman and an obese woman who become friends and are dealing with their issues and their friendship. And it's about women and weight. It's very much all about character. And so I can't help but say, you should check it out. It is nonstop character. I think what's interesting about it for me was I was like, how can I explore ideas and characters and still make it feel, and it is, a story. I don't think there's a single scene in it that isn't a good story scene, but at the same time, every scene also is about plumbing a part of the characters that we have not explored yet, or showing a change that we didn't see coming, I think. Anyway, the Arndt videos. Yes, Michael Arndt's videos on endings, I strongly recommend. They're terrific. Anyway, Disfigured, as I said, Disfigured is on iTunes or Amazon streaming rental, so you can watch it if you want. But then let's get into something a little more conventionally accepted as a great character study, Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane is entirely about what we can know about a person. In this case, a famous public figure, but at the same time, a man who is being understood through many, many different perspectives. And the whole question is, can we know a person? So aside from being, many consider the greatest film of all time, I'm not sure about that. Hello, Dan. But I can say it is a truly great film, and I think it does hold up. But admittedly, this is an old movie. It's from 1941. It's black and white. It's talking about a culture that is almost 100 years old, but I think it's pretty stunning. More up to date, Whiplash. Another case of a complex interaction between two characters in which, as it goes on, they are changing, but we are also seeing sides of them that we did not truly understand. When it begins, we say, "Oh, I see what they're like," and then as it goes on, we begin to say, "Oh, things are a little more complicated." And the end is very complex in terms of character, in terms of who's right or who's wrong in their conflict. And that all comes down to a question of whether or not we understand the world from their point of view. So Whiplash, fantastic little indie. 3 Billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. Once again, some of these, somebody's going to like them, somebody's going to hate them. What I thought was interesting about them is that this is a real case where you have characters who are all over the place, very, very vivid. And yet, as you get to know them, as you see them interact, and as they come into conflict with each other, they change. Do they change? Yes, to a certain extent they change, but mostly we gather depth about our understanding of the situation. No one is entirely what they seem, or no one is entirely how we judge them. Not so much they're not what they seem. It's that our easy judgment of these situations and these people become shaken as it goes along. And it is a stunning accomplishment as far as I'm concerned. It's really, even minor characters, it's really great. You get these minor characters, you think, oh, I know where this is going. And there's more to it. And it's really beautiful, I think. So, by the way, please feel free, if you have comments about these or questions, and you're watching here live, get into it. Let me know what you think. Okay, another undisputed classic. A lot of people will be like, yeah, it's a long time ago. I don't need to see that. The 3-movie Godfather collection. And I would include the deeply flawed third, Godfather 3, because altogether they are the story of one character, Michael Corleone. There's a vast array, a universe of secondary characters, but truly the center of these 3 movies is Michael. And so you get some really serious complexity developing in this character as he goes along. He is changing, but he's also being revealed as he goes along. And it's just beautifully made, beautifully great. Let's see, is this person trolling me? I think so, Detune. Let's see, how do you like your lasagna? I like it. It's good. My lasagna's fine. I didn't realize that there were many ways to do lasagna, so let's not worry about that. Okay, so yeah, Godfather. It's worth seeing. If you're interested in the history of movies, there are certain things like Citizen Kane, Godfather, that are worth watching. I think they still hold up. Maybe you don't. Very often, the reason that things don't hold up is because they've so had a ripple effect in the culture, in the art, that you've seen what they did repeated and reiterated so many times that it just doesn't seem that interesting that they could do that. But you should check out those major milestones, even if they're not a genre that you're interested in or a style. That's okay. It's still worth checking out. Yes, exactly. The more that the story goes on, the more that you say, well, okay, this person who's in some ways done a bad thing, in other ways is completely great. and their relationships are very, very subtle. It's very complicated. And by the way, you'll notice I have not said who I think did the bad thing, because there's a wide range of characters, some of whom have done some pretty clearly bad things. However, what's interesting is how complicated what they are doing and why they are doing it becomes as you get to know the other people involved. That's good character. That's good story. All right. Michael Clayton. It's a thriller. It's a legal thriller, but not. There's no courtroom stuff in it. It's about lawyers and a lawsuit, but not about a trial at all. It is about a man who is confronting his own character. That's what's related. What's great about it is by the end he is saying, like, this is who I am. Don't you understand who I am? It's a brilliant scene. His last scene, but all the way through, Michael is being peeled back. Little layers of understanding about how he relates to people and how he put himself in the position that he is in. I'm always trying not to spoil things when I talk about these. But also, what's really cool is to watch some of the secondary characters, particularly Tilda Swinton's character and oh man, I can't remember his name, but I think Tom Wilkerson, who plays a mentally ill, brilliant lawyer. It's a great. First of all, just the dialogue is phenomenal. It's also brilliantly shot and acted, but the dialogue is high-flying, exciting, smart, and deeply, deeply emotional all the way through. It's great. All right. Okay, and then watch Mank. You know, Mank is a it's for the old movie enthusiast. And I just rewatched it actually, and it's dazzling and unimportant, which is really something. You don't need to see Mank, but if you love old movies, then it's quite astonishing. Magnificent Ambersons, you know, I don't know it that well, and it was indeed killed by the re-edits and the fact that Wells, it was taken away from Wells. I would have to see that again, but I'm, you know, are any of these movies not good? No. Are any of these movies not worth seeing? I'm just specifically talking about explorations of or revelations of character. That's the theme for the picking of these. Yeah, Clayton is super good. I've never seen these movies, but yes, I will get to Better Call Saul in particular. Breaking Bad is amazing, but of the two, Better Call Saul, when you're talking about just exploration of character, Better Call Saul is in fact simply about a character. All the plot is a way of saying, how did this person become this person? That is the point of the 5 or 6 seasons. Everything in it is about that. There's a couple of series I'm going to talk about that, where the entire, like with Citizen Kane, the entire point of an extremely entertaining story is to ask the question, how did this person become this person, this very unique person? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Mank is, you know, God bless David Fincher for following out his personal visions. Okay. So let me check. Okay, so we got to Michael Clayton. That means now, while we're in the thriller zone, I'm going to go back in time a little bit. Klute. I've talked about it before. It's a story of a small town cop who comes to New York City because a friend of his and an executive in his small town in Pennsylvania has gone missing in New York while on a business trip to New York. And pretty soon the cop begins to recognize that the way to track down what's happened is this call girl, a prostitute that the businessman apparently had a relationship with or an encounter with, Anyway, the development of the characters, three main characters actually, is really rich and subtle. The mind games they play with each other. It's actually, there's a beautiful use of a therapist. The way that we get to learn about Bree, the call girl in the story, is we watch her at auditions. She's an actress. We watch her doing her job. We watch her in therapy, and at the same time, we're watching she's being used by the cop. It's magnificent, and I have to tell you, when I saw this when I was a teenager, when it came out in 1971, this poster really confused me because it looks like he's the bad guy. It looks like, okay, he is menacing her. In fact, that is not the story. So the first time I saw it, I kind of kept on waiting for when he turned out to be the bad guy. But I can tell you right now, that's not the story. That's not a spoiler. Unusual Suspects, actually Usual Suspects. Usual Suspects is, unless you mean, is there an unusual? There may be an unusual, but The Usual Suspects, yes, I wouldn't. That is a mechanical reveal of a character. It's all about revealing a certain character's identity. However, I wouldn't say that we really get much deep sense. It's a clever puzzle. But I don't feel like it's, and as such, well worth understanding to see how we learn about this character in a puzzle sense. But in terms of learning about any of these characters in a personal sense, not the strong suit. Klute is Klute. I think it's phenomenal, but some people will just think it's boring. That is entirely possible. The revelation, the last scene, the second to last scene, the big conflict with the bad guy is amazing because he is revealing his character in that moment, and it's a startling scene. It's just not what you expect the final confrontation to be. Okay, okay, that's it. Yeah. All right, let's see. Hey, Wright. Bree's can actually. What's really cool is how much Bree won't and can't change, and yet it is struggling with that. It's a great movie. I think this is all my opinion. These are not official important movies. They're movies that I personally just get a lot out of. Okay, while we're back in the 70s, let's talk about Mean Streets, because everyone thinks this is a gangster movie. It's not. And that's why I chose this poster, because go to church on Sunday, go to hell on Monday. That's what it's about. It is about the spiritual and personal journey of the main character, and his relationships to his various low-life friends, and his religion versus his job, which is partly to work for a mobster. But this is a character study. It doesn't make any sense as a mob movie. People keep talking about it. It's a Scorsese, it's Little Italy, it's a mob movie. It's not. It is a character study about a deeply conflicted religious person in a corrupt world, and it's very experimental. It's very weird. It's very difficult. It is not an easy movie to get into or to enjoy. However, it's constantly interesting, and so many of the things that you are now used to in filmmaking were first done or first exploded. He took everything from somewhere else, like we all do, in this movie. Even like Spike Lee's weird tracking close-up shots where somebody's walking but they're kind of gliding. That he stole that from Marty, as he will, I'm sure, admit. Anyway, but the main thing is this whole movie is about this character's trying to juggle his spiritual side and his corrupt life, and about the growing pressure on that. It's really an excellent character story. Yes, yeah. Once again, another solid. Best Years is on my list. Yeah, Point Blank. Once again, because of the noirish nature of they're trying to sort of keep the character sort of mysterious or simple, it strikes me as he's kind of a one-note guy, even though the movie isn't. All right, so 7 Up 73. I'm not going to say that's a character movie. It's a great 70s movie, a desperate attempt to make the French Connection again, having the French Connection itself. These are great 70s movies. They're just not character. Our point here is, let's remember, can you share some examples of revealing a character? That is our mission here. And as such, I'm going to talk about a very recent movie, The Power of the Dog, which is once again about the slow, clear. It's real. I find it baffling that people say it's boring. It's not. Every single scene has an unbelievable tension, because you are asking yourself, how is this character drama, this problem of this very, very troubled man whose safe zone is being disrupted, how is he going to react to that, and how are the others going to survive him? And then the slow development of the other characters, it's quite brilliant. It's I think marvelous. And aside from the fact that the performances are really good, the performances are really good because the characters are really good. They are, for all the simplicity of the scenes, deeply, deeply struggling, and they're struggling with a very dramatic situation. Likewise, while we're on a Cumberbatch little mission here, a pretty neglected film based on a true story called The Courier. Which is the ads, the trailer make it seem like a sort of spy comedy. It's not. And I think that's why it didn't do well, because it was badly misadvertised. But this is a character study of an extraordinary person. And I really, really urge you to check it out. It goes places you will not expect. Good. Watch them. This is good. If you don't watch enough movies, you can't write movies. That's, and maybe you don't want to write movies. I don't know. But if you want to write movies, you got to watch movies. And you got to watch movies that you may not think are your kind of thing. You got to push your boundaries a little. Thank you. Yes. Primal Fear. Yeah. No. It certainly is a character reveal, but that is also actually a pretty good character drama, because not just is the boy suspect victim, Edward Norton's character, an interesting character, but the main character is going through a character crisis. He is a certain type of lawyer, and he's being put into a bad position because of his inner workings, because of his psychology. So that's actually what's cool about that story, is it's not just a puzzle. It's not just a thing. It's about this guy who desperately wants to believe in something. And that's really what's super cool. Shane, definitely a character Western. Interesting. I've never seen I Loved You So Long. Kristen Stott Thomas. That's cool. Thank you for the recommendation. That is great. Yes, Marathon Man, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. The Marathon Man is exactly that. This nerdy, nebbishy guy gets drawn into a terrible conflict between other bad guys. I'm not going to say more about that, except to say that, yeah, exactly. It becomes a question of how he's going to be, how this poor sucker victim is going to become, how to survive this this crime drama, this yeah, I don't want to say too much about Marathon Man. Actually, the book is better than the movie. The movie is a blast, but the book is a real kick. All right. By the way, if you're going to read the book, don't watch the movie because there are spoilers, and it's much better to read the book first. Marathon Man, that is. Good, good, cool. Yes, we are all storytellers, and that is indeed absolutely shared in all of these things. Okay, so while we're on pairs, because I was doing a Cumberbatch pairs, let's talk about the magnificent playwright August Wilson, who, aside from his incredible plays exploring character, the movies made of his plays, 2 recent movies made of his plays, are pure character theater film. Fences is an amazing grinding insight into these handful of people, this family, and this man. It's really powerful, and it's really interesting to watch, to get away from the slickness of movie storytelling. It's a beautifully made movie, but it's a play, and it's a good version of a play. It's both cinematic and theatrical. And you can learn a lot from that because you can watch people talking in a way that they rarely get to talk in a movie. They get to express their characters and to get into character conflicts in a way that's just deeper than most movies. Plus, the performances are just amazing. Then likewise, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which is more stagey. It's less, in some ways, less believable, but the workings of the play in order to explore these people. That's the whole point of both of these stories, to say, here's a bunch of people. You don't really think about these people enough. Start to watch what happens if you really, really pay attention to them and they start to hit a crisis point in their life. And it's just beautifully done. Great, great. And most people in the movie business, they don't pay enough attention to theater. And so they don't understand what's potentially available to them in the drama stories that they are playing out. So they just get into cinematic stuff and they miss the character. So both of these are adaptations of plays by August Wilson that became super movies. I like Fences a little more than Ma Rainey, but the performances in Ma Rainey and the story of Ma Rainey are really great. Okay. Is It Safe is a marvelous Marathon Man reference. It is Laurence Olivier last movie, and it's rather difficult when you hear the behind the scenes stories about how Dustin Hoffman, in his method acting, William Goldman wrote a book called Adventures in the Screen Trade. One of the things he talks about in that is his experience having written the book for Marathon Man and the script, and being on the set, watching it, sort of cringy for Dustin Hoffman. So yes, Laurence Olivier. English Patient is superb, and a really, once again, this is like characters being revealed very slowly through the story. It's marvelous stuff. Yes, interestingly, 3:10 to Yuma is a fabulous character western in 57. In 07, it's an okay character western and a good western, a solid western. But the 57 version is slower and simpler, and it's all about the people. Remember, we're here to talk about character, not just about great movies, which is always fun. When we're talking about character, there is a filmmaker who is kind of out of fashion now, but he was super cool. James L. Brooks did a movie called, almost any of his movies is worth watching for the exploration and development of character. Just that simple. There's nothing that James L. Brooks made that you won't get. Even the ones that flopped horribly, like he did one called How Will You Know, which I actually really like. I think it's really good. Just character building and character revealing. Spanglish, once again, just not a popular movie, but super. But this was both popular, and if you want to watch characters develop and explore each other, to open up to each other and to provoke things in each other, as good as it gets. And his earlier movie, Broadcast News, are amazing cases of character comedy that never just becomes comedy. It's always deeply based in the characters. So I would recommend those for character. Tape. I've never seen that. I've heard of it. Kirby, I'm not going to talk about that right now. We're doing just a strictly. I'm going to try and stick to the topic because I have so many to talk about of movies, shows, and plays that are exploring character. If at the end of the hour I've gotten through my list, I will be happy to talk about managers. If not, just send me an email and I'll put it on the list for another time. Okay, so very, very different from James L. Brooks's character comedies is a Western tragedy, a Western character tragedy, Unforgiven. Yes, it's Clint Eastwood. It's not what you think. Now and then, Clint Eastwood will hit an absolute home run of depth of character. It will be like every 10 movies, but then he will just like, whoa, that's really interesting. This is, I think, by far his best. And what's great about it is not only is the main character slowly but surely brought to reveal himself, but all the other characters too. There's a lot of time spent on some of the other characters. The local sheriff, the British gunman, the reporter, they're all unveiling themselves as they come together. It's quite a fabulous script and very well made. It's just a solid piece of work. Now, these are two movies that are very interesting because, for one thing, nobody's heard of them. For another thing, the filmmakers themselves don't like them. But I think they're terrific and they're fabulous for character. I really recommend. They're very hard to find, actually. But like most of that, I think neither one is streaming available. You have to like buy a DVD, but they're pretty cheap. But anyway, so Baby It's You was by John Sayles. John Sayles was the one of the main independent filmmakers of the 70s and 80s. He really broke new ground with making little home produced art films, and he's just a very important figure, John Sayles. Once he had made a couple of movies, the studio system, the way he made his movies was he would work for studios and for Roger Corman particularly, writing junk. And some of those junk scripts are really good. He wrote the script for The Howling, which is a horror movie, which is far better than it should be, script-wise. He wrote Piranha. Anyway, he would write these, he would save up his money, and then he would take that money and he would produce his own little indie films. And people really liked that. In the business, they were like, oh, this guy's cool. He did a movie called Mate One and a movie called 8 Men Out. But right at a certain point, the studio system came to him and said, we'll make you a movie. And he did this thing called Baby It's You, which is incredibly independent at heart. But apparently the production of it was very unpleasant for him because he was dealing with studios and studio notes and whatnot. And so he hates this movie. He thinks it is a piece of junk and it changed his life. There are certain people, David Lynch also, who would have studio experiences and say, never again. So that's what Baby It's You is. But it's a really cool coming of age movie about this couple, but mainly this young woman in Jersey in the 60s, finding her. It's based on Amy Robinson, who interestingly is the female lead of Mean Streets and then became a producer and produced Baby It's You. And a lot of Baby It's You is about her life. So anyway, Baby It's You, I really think it's a terrific movie. It's both this high school 60s coming of age movie, but it's just got really great characters and wonderful. Looking for Kitty is Edward Burns, who another indie pioneer, just a generation later. And he ferociously, once again, he acted in Saving Private Ryan. He would work for the industry, and then he would take his own money and make these little indie films that he would self-produce. This one was made on video at a time when that was not a cool thing to do. And it's a story about this private eye, this retired cop who is hired to help this high school sports coach whose wife has left him. And it's just phenomenal. It's this beautiful little weird, quirky story. The poster sucks. The cover of the DVD sucks. They do not represent what this thing is. But it's a really, really terrific character-based indie. I urge you guys, it's not easy to find these, but I suggest you check them out. Yes, The Savages is another really good. Clint Eastwood's The Mule, I'm iffy on. Later Clint Eastwood, very, really hits and misses. There's parts of The Mule that I think are well worthwhile, and parts where it's like Clint Eastwood has no idea how old he is and how unappealing he is and how cliched he has become. And so that takes what could be a really solid story and damages it in some ways. But yeah, there's a lot about The Mule that I do like and a lot that I could do without. Yeah, no, he didn't. That's the whole point. How can very often you have directors who do not have final cut, and so they will not be allowed to make the movie as they saw it. Famously, David Lynch with Dune, Sales with Baby It's You, a lot of people. And so what happens is very often there are people who came up through the independent world, and then they were like, I can't make, they won't let me make the movie I want to make. And so therefore they're kind of seduced by the money and options given to you by a big production, but they hate the result. Okay, so let us moving on. Okay, speaking of independent world, let's get much more accessible, not creatively accessible. Like this is a offbeat, very, very indie movie, but it's easily accessible because it just came out in 2020. It's called Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. And it is an amazing, ultra low budget character. It's just about these two, once again, it's Jersey, New Jersey. Kevin, I was just listening to an interview with Kevin Smith, who was talking about what it's like to grow up in New Jersey and know that New York is out there and New York is making you feel insignificant. Anyway, this is about a high school girl who needs an abortion. And so she goes into the city and is just spending the day or two that she and her friend are going through the process of getting an abortion. And it is, for some of you, this will be upsetting or unacceptable, and I totally respect that. Not everything I am recommending is for everyone in this audience. Don't watch it if you don't like it. I'm okay with that. I am not saying it's important. I'm saying if you want to watch a movie that is made entirely as if you're just a fly on the wall watching these people, and yet it manages to completely dramatize and tell a story in a beautiful way in which just through small personal encounters, you learn a lot about these people and you begin to understand their feelings, their characters in really powerful ways. So turning from that in 180 degrees to the least indie, most the perfection of the contemporary studio system, Crazy Stupid Love is an ensemble comedy. It is gorgeously written, gorgeously made, amazingly acted. It's a comedy about what happens to a whole bunch of extended people around a couple that breaks up. This middle-aged couple falls apart, And in that, their children, their friends, their children's teachers, their friends, their children, their friends at work, all these different people come into play, and it follows all of them in a beautiful way. There's character reveals. There's really great comedy as people get to know each other in unexpected ways. It's a really slick piece of work, and I say that admiringly, and at the same time really rich in character, and you begin to see people differently as they go along. It's beautifully shot. It's just a gorgeous little movie. Well, not little. It's pretty big. Okay. Once again, swinging wildly. What I'm trying to do here is show the many different ways you can approach character, approach centering your story on character, because that is the topic. So, Midnight Cowboy, which is a tale of, at the time, tremendously rejected people. A wannabe hustler, a guy who comes from Texas to New York in the hope of finding rich women who will pay him to sleep with them. So basically a male prostitute who meets this local guy called Ratso Rizzo, who is a sort of shabby hustling bum, not sexual hustler, just, con man kind of guy. And about their unexpected relationship, it is beautifully told that you watch these people change, and also that you begin to understand who they are in ways that you don't at the beginning. When you first meet them, they are wild cliches. And then as you get to know them, they become profoundly human. It won Best Picture, even though it was at the time X-rated, which was one of the first, the ratings had just come out. It was about sexual things. And so therefore it got an X rating, which meant that in theory, you couldn't even see ads for it in the papers, but it won Best Picture. It's amazing. Interesting. I have never seen that Romanian movie. I will now take a look at it. I've never seen Simple Plan. I mean, I saw it when it came out, and I don't remember it, but I've heard really good things about Simple Plan. Sam Raimi, good writer. Hello, Marcia Latoso. What we are doing today is we are going through a list of movies and shows and some plays and books that are particularly engaged with exploring and revealing characters. Cool. I will watch Simple Plan sometime soon. Okay. Hi, Aaron. That's okay. I hope you watch it some other time. Okay. So let's keep moving because I'm only halfway through my list here. All right. So Midnight Cowboy, back 1969. Amazing character drama. Just amazing. That one that's a hill I'll die on. Likewise, this is a very underknown. First of all, the problem is certain titles. There's like 12 movies with this title. This is the one. This is the one you want to watch. It's by the way, this whole list is going to be in the description of this video. I will put the entire list there so that you can see it. Okay, so Prince of the City, 1981, Sidney Lumet. It's based on a true story about the destruction of a narcotics division in the New York Police Department, and mainly about this one character who goes through. It's a long, involved movie, but it's all about what it's like for this man to recognize that he has become corrupt, and what that means when he starts to get pressured to turn on the other policeman. It's beautiful. It's real. It's harsh, but it's real, and it's all about just the machination of character under pressure to face who he is, and it's just amazing. Even more amazing, though, because I'm talking about a great movie, and I'm talking about an even more great movie, Coming Home. Very few people. Once again, there's a lot of things with this title. This is the 1978 Vietnam War movie with Jane Fonda, Jon Voight, Bruce Dern. It is unbelievable. This is about characters. It's about a wounded, paralyzed Vietnam veteran, a woman that is working in the rehab hospital where he is recovering, and her husband, who is a soldier going over to Vietnam. It's so beautiful. It's unbelievable. And one of the things about it is once again, it's like this Hollywood now and then will manage to get an extraordinary amount of seemingly casual relationships into a perfectly crafted story. It's really, really, really people don't know it well enough. They should know this movie. Okay. Yes, Sea of Love. I love Sea of Love. Yeah, Sea of Love is fabulous. I was almost on this list, but I had too many good noirs. Sea of Love is just a solid... It's really interesting. Sea of Love is like True Detective, which also should have been on the list. Those are cases where what you have is a writer wanted to tell a story about a character, a relationship and a character. In this case, about a man who is terribly, terribly lonely and struggling with his own inability to connect. That's the Al Pacino character in Sea of Love. But he said, in order to deal with this character, I had to put a gun in his hand for Hollywood to make the movie. So there's this wonderful thriller about hunting a serial killer by going on what was at the time, there was a thing called personal ads, where people would put ads in the magazines, back of magazines, to try and meet new people. Anyway, Sea of Love, amazing, amazing script by Richard Price. Hello, Janae. We're doing character. What we are doing is talking about movies, shows, books, and plays which are particularly focused on exploring or revealing a character. All good stories should do that, but some, they put their full weight on, like, I want to really work on that topic. Yes, as good as it gets. Yeah, well, what's interesting is he changes so much, and yet he changes so little. And that's what I admire about it, is because that's honest. Yes, Richard Price, who is a phenomenal writer. He also did an amazing series called The Night Of. Okay, hello, Natasha. Okay, so let's keep going because I still got a lot to do here. All right, now, talking about genres where you don't recognize that what it's really about is ideas and character, I think Get Out is fine. I think Get Out is a very entertaining one-idea movie. Us is incredibly 12 ideas with really, really deep character insights. The questions raised about these people, about what it means to be accepted or not accepted, is brought out in a completely genre horror story. But as the poster says, that what it's really about is about the layers of character that develop in people when they are excluded, rejected, mistreated. It's just beautiful. It's really great. And people, Get Out was easy. Get Out was like, okay, I get the joke. Let's move on. That was fun. Us is really thought-provoking and really well done. Jordan Peele really knocked it out of the park with Us, as far as I'm concerned. And I, once again, I think, I don't know, maybe it's highly regarded in a lot of, it seems like it's underrated to me. While we're in the genre exploring character, and people are like, they're not going because they think it's going to be a great character study, but that's what it is. Shutter Island, based on a novel by a really terrific genre novelist called Dennis Lehane, who I've got a bunch of his stuff as far as I'm concerned. Also, Gone Baby Gone. If you ever get a chance to see that movie, that's a really interesting case of like a straight detective story a wonderful detective story about hunting for a missing child, and at the same time, just layers of incredibly rich character. Anyway, likewise here, this entire story, Shutter Island, is about character. I don't want to give away too much. I'll just say that there's layer upon layer upon layer of character within it, and yet at the same time, just a hell of a great horror movie, horror thriller. Yeah, Shutter Island, damn good. Likewise, now I only saw this once, but it made a huge impression on me, and I would like to see it again sometime. It's called Colossal, and it's a really weird movie. It's kind of a monster movie and kind of a relationship movie, and it is really, really good. I don't want to say too much about it, except to say it's about a woman who's having a hard time, moves back to her hometown. At the same time, clearly there are monsters involved, but they are not in that town. They are off on the other side of the world. And the development of these people in this town and what you learn about their characters, stunning. It's stunning. It's funny. It's weird. It's brilliant. So, yes. Yes. Mystic River, Gone Baby Gone, double feature. Absolutely. That's unfortunately a case where Mystic River, the book, is 10 times better than the movie. It's an okay movie. It's not bad, but the book is just so good. Yeah, exactly. I think it's underknown, but highly rated. All right. So now I'm going to do 3 at once because they are linked only by 2 things. One, they're all British. The other is they are all problematic. And I really want to express this. When I talk about how great a movie is, it doesn't mean it's flawless. It doesn't mean it may not have incredibly uncomfortable mistakes and problems, very often just from the time and place that they are made. That's true. It doesn't mean they're worthless. So that said, The Entertainer, which is a British movie from 1960 about this vaudeville guy in a cheap sort of the Coney Island of England, and his family as the English Empire begins to fall, begins to collapse, and become just England. The British Empire, the changes of civilization of their culture in 1960. Explored just in this really cool movie. But there's a speech, the crucial speech towards the end is also racially insensitive like you wouldn't believe, but it's really good. I don't know what to say. It's heartfelt. It's really well-intended. Doesn't recognize that it is just making other people into a cliche. Likewise, Lawrence of Arabia, which is an amazing study of the main character, Lawrence. The other characters are pretty much all cliches in a certain sense, although really good cliches often. But the main character, honestly, Lawrence of Arabia is one of those things that people say, oh yeah, Lawrence of Arabia, big Hollywood movie. If you actually watch it with your mind open, you're like, I can't believe Hollywood made this movie. It is so unacceptable in terms of Hollywood storytelling, in terms of shaping the story, and in terms of what's in the story, and the idea that it's sort of like this rise and fall story about this guy who is both amazing and terrible, and they just let that be the story. It's great. And then The Crying Game, which was a 1990s noir, which is for its time, it was really bold. And also, what I really love about it is it's all about character. The thriller is just an excuse to get into the humanity of these people. There's a terrorist plot about Irish revolutionaries in England, but at the same time, there's a story about people feeling uncomfortable about the violence they are doing and about their making connections despite differences. It's just phenomenal. So these are 3 that I would say they're really interesting. They're really powerful. I think they are great stories exploring characters, but I will not say that they are without some uncomfortableness about their culture, their various cultural mistakes. Yes, Adventureland is fabulous. Adventureland is a really great little ensemble coming-of-age comedy set in a crappy little amusement park over a summer. It's great. It's marvelous. Yes, Ridley Scott's Kingdom of Heaven, especially if you watch the long version, the director's cut, which is like an extra 40 minutes longer, you really get a lot of thoughts and ideas and character stuff that is sort of cut out of the regular version. The long version, that's one where it makes a difference. It's not just a couple of fancy scenes, it's like a whole lot of character gets explored. Okay, now you're going to go, what? But yes, the new Batman movie it's all about character. That's all it's about. It's about a point in Batman's life when he has to question who he is. It's really well done. It's about to come out on HBO Max for those of you who have it. If you get a chance, I recommend it. It's got as with all things, it's not going to be for everyone, but as for a comic book story, it is remarkably focused on character, on the exploration and conflict, which forces characters to look at themselves. Likewise, the people he's dealing with, Catwoman and Riddler, particularly. Okay, so then radical change. Best Years of Our Lives, which was already mentioned. Best Years of Our Lives is truly one of the greatest movies of the 20th century. However, it is old. It is from the 1940s, and therefore many of you will just find it slow and boring and obvious or just inaccessible. But honestly, it's a great story. It's a story of these three guys coming back from World War II. The war's over. They've survived. And they are going back. They all meet because they're all on the same plane going to their hometown, a little Midwestern town. And it's about what happens to them and what we learn about them as they come back changed to the same world. It's beautiful. It's beautifully done. It's a case where, once again, you get these cliches. The people seem very cliched when you first meet them. And as this movie goes on, you begin to just say, oh, wow, this is far more thoughtful and daring for the 1940s than you would expect. It's a beautiful movie if you're up for old movies. If you're not up for old movies, here's a fairly underrated contemporary thriller called The Drop, which is, once again, its genre is crime movie. It's about a robbery of a bar. That's what it's about. And yet what it's really about is character. And the characters are phenomenal. Tom Hardy's character in particular, it's just incredible where it ends up. I was knocked out. I've watched it 3 times and read the book. It's really good because it's so small. It's just about some guys robbing a bar or guys working in a bar that gets robbed in. But it's really about slowly but surely understanding who these people are. It's just beautiful. Now, this is going to be like, everyone will have arguments about this, I think. Oh yes, by the way, Cutter's Way. Absolutely. If you get a chance, it's early, I think it's 1980, maybe late 70s, little thriller about, once again, a Vietnam veteran and his friends dealing with the aftermath of a murder. One of them witnesses a murder, and about it's just character. It's just like the slowly building tension of a damaged person trying to confront a damaging world, and a guy who is trying really hard not to be engaged. It's fabulous. I thought about The Apartment. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. However, when it comes to character, yes, the solid character. Billy Wilder never did a not solid character, but it's not really, the focus of this list was movies that are really exploring character. And I felt like Apartment was more exploring a world, a picture, and a plot. So I have never heard of either of those or that filmmaker. Interesting. I will definitely check that out. Interesting. Thank you, Gene. Okay. So, as I said, this is... Some people will argue that the characters in these, they're terrible, like not deeply conceived, but I think they are. There Will Be Blood, P.T. Anderson. I believe it is a really stunning exploration of this man's character. There is an argument to be made that he is a sort of cartoon. But I don't think I think this is a powerful story of a very twisted character. And likewise, Magnolia. These people are way over the top. They're obvious. They're operatic, and yet I find it very powerful as it goes along. It's not subtle. It is not. It is the opposite of the drop. It is a big opera of crazy people exploding their characters out, and yet amazingly done. I think it's fabulous. All right, just a couple more movies, and then we're going to get into shows. And this is going to go long. Okay, just Goodfellas is about a character. Once again, seems like a mob movie. It's not. It's a character study. It's the study of a man who was in the mob and ended up informing on them. And it's his wife and the people he was involved with. It's just about characters. It's told in his voice, and every bit of the story is about the corrupting influence of the criminal lifestyle on these people, and about the conflict between their human characters, their loves and needs, and the grinding awfulness of being criminal. The way that being a criminal in an organized crime world destroys the humanity of these people. It's I think very, very solid. And then two, just real. This one stays with me a lot. I've been thinking a lot about this movie. It's hardly anyone says there's sort of a backlash against Matt Damon, which I can't say is wrong. He is he's just the whitest Boston white guy you can get, but he's really talented, and he'll commit to something like Stillwater, which is really, really, really good. It's this study of this American father going over to Europe because his daughter has been imprisoned for murder, he believes wrongly, and about the relationship he makes with the people in France that he meets trying to get her case reopened. And it's really good, and nobody knows about it. It's fabulous. Likewise, the man who made the film made his first film was called The Station Agent. It's a story about three very different people who meet in once again in Jersey. I'm telling you, Jersey is the source of a lot of fine art. Anyway, I just highly recommend it. The Station Agent, Peter Dinklage, Bobby Cannavale. And it's just really good. So those are two I would take. I don't know. Every PTA movie is worth seeing, but when we're talking about character and depth of character and exploration of character, some more than others. That's really the important thing. Is well, he doesn't have a real arc. He is. Yeah, exactly. He is determinedly who he is, and that has increasing pressure on it, which I really like. Yes. No, these are all, once again, let's remember, the purpose of this session is to talk about movies, shows, books that explore character as the center of their purpose of being. At least in my opinion, that's what these are. Oh, cool. That's good. Yeah, I would absolutely. All right. So let's talk. First of all, also just I want to say, as far as I'm concerned, everything by Pixar and everything by Marvel are worth checking out because what they do is they take genres of movies where what's always been wrong with these genres is that they're just not good on character. And then what they've done is said, imagine if these genres had good characters, had well developed, changing, original characters. And that's what makes those movies so damn good. Because not only are they operating on all the fun genre stuff, but they have human connection. They are exploring characters. So let's quickly go through some series that I want to talk about because honestly, when you talk about exploring a character, a series has so much more room to do that. So we had already talked about Better Call Saul. The entire purpose of this series is to take a character who was an interesting person in Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is a phenomenal series too, but when it comes to character, the whole point of Better Call Saul is how did this man become this man? He's a freaky guy when we meet him, and to say how did he get there? And to actually break it down into, I don't know, it's 50 hours or something. It's remarkable. Likewise, Mr. Robot, a very challenging show, and you have to get you have to go with it for a while to realize that what this is about is who is this person? What is his understanding of what's going on and why is he doing what he is doing? But then who is he? 4 seasons, and it never stops making that more interesting and intricate. And the whole thing is one vision. That's likewise Better Call Saul. The entire story is about exploring one troubled person. It's phenomenal. Likewise, Fleabag. Very, very different form than those other two. It's a half hour. It's shorter. It's just 2 seasons, but it is exploring this woman who has a lot going on behind her, and yet she talks directly to you. It's just phenomenally entertaining. Every character around her is great, but it is the whole point of this show is to explore her character. Now, likewise, you're not going to expect this. Peacemaker, the only one of the rare DC movies, DC shows that's, and it's because a Marvel influence guy got fired and went over there for a while. It's a wacky show. It's way over the top, but at its heart, it is about the character the character confronting who he is. Peacemaker learning why and who he is and what the base of his character is. I love Peeps so much, I don't care how many men, women, and children I have to kill to get it. That question, how can you say that? It's explored in really, really exuberant comedy. Do you think having such an encyclopedic knowledge of pre-film plots and characters makes it harder to think up an idea you'd want to spin? No, the opposite. Remember, you are not trying to think of something that no one has thought of before. You're trying to think up your version of all the stuff behind you. That's what you're doing. You're mixing and matching and taking every trick and tool that you can from what I think the more knowledge you have of every trick and tool, the better. Like to say, oh, this is how they did this. How will I do it? That is what gives you superpowers as a writer. It does not make, if you're spending your time saying, oh, I can't do this because they did it, you're missing the point. Because every one of these, you can go back and see where they got it from. If you get really encyclopedic, you can really say, oh, this character, this structure, this way of understanding things, it's partly ripped off from this, and this, but they've combined it in an original way. And they very often reference the things they love in them, just to have some fun. Yeah, exactly. Every time I think it's all been done, someone puts the slightest spin on something and makes it new. That is exactly right. And that is what you're trying to do. You are not trying to come up with something new. You will not be able to. Ain't nothing new. But what's new is how you put together the things that you are influenced by. That's what's really, really going to do it. So let's quickly go through the rest of these because they're super good. Very, very different from Peacemaker. My Brilliant Friend. It's 4 seasons. The 4th one has not come out yet. I've only seen the first 2, actually. It's based on an Italian quartet of novels by Elena Ferrante. It's about a relationship between these 2 women in the 1950s and 60s and 70s in Italy. One of whom is from a very troubled family, but she is brilliant, as the title says. The other one is more conventional and more acceptable, but she knows that her brilliant friend is in some ways more brilliant than she is, and their very, very troubled arcs in relationship is unbelievably, exquisitely explored. These are very, very rich characters. Very rich characters, very different form. Hacks, half-hour comedy about a young TV writer who ends up having to work for an old female stand-up comedian in Las Vegas. Just great character work. Just strongly recommend all of these, actually. Mayor of Easttown. Very basic, who killed the girl kind of cop story. But what it's really about is the characters. It's very, very well constructed for good thrills, great cliffhangers, all that stuff. Great mystery. But what the mystery is about and what all the people are about is their characters, about what their relationships are and what their troubles are and what their strengths are. It's beautifully done in that it manages to keep the mystery going and yet really make the characters the source of the mystery. It's excellent. Another half hour that is about relationships. Insecure. 2 women and their assorted men and friends in Los Angeles trying to figure out work and love. And really well done. Just so full. They want to explore characters and at the same time explore the world that they live in. So that you get this really great character comedy. And at the same time, they're really, really trying to say, let's think about who these people are, what they want, why they are having trouble getting it, what's good about them, what's weak about them. It's solid. Lost Daughter is interesting. It's got parts that I really like and parts that I don't think are great, but it's very, very solid. It's interesting. Mad Men, another series that is all about a character. Coming out around him is an entire constellation of fascinating characters. But the central character, Don Draper, the one in the silhouette at the beginning, that is another one of these like Mr. Robot and Better Call Saul, and the idea that this is going to take this one person and just dig deeper and deeper and deeper into him. It's beautifully done if you watch the whole series with that in mind. Plus, just the glorious fun of around him, all these other characters who are also getting richer and deeper and more complicated as they go along. Just a solid thriller is once again based in unraveling the character, detecting the characters, understanding what they are up to, and then how they come into conflict, and at the same time have feelings for each other, and then the ways that complexly follows out, even when that relationship is not the center of the story anymore, is really, really well done. Some parts are stronger than others, but overall, it's a really solid exploration of character in the form of a political thriller. And then we have Halt and Catch Fire, which is about a bunch of computer designers, engineers, inventors, business people in the 1980s and into the 1990s who are right at the edge of everything. It's an uneven show, but its heart is all about, I want to explore these people and this time. And these people, what's really interesting about this series is that they changed what they thought about the people as they were going along. Like they started with a certain kind of slightly cliched format of how they were going to, like, oh, this is the troubled businessman, and this is the, they were, as they went along, they're like, no, let's rethink that. Let's get them more interesting. Let's get them more, get into some new truths. And so the show really develops as it goes along, and it's really solid. It's very entertaining, I think. And then finally, as far as series goes, Euphoria, which is just a beautiful. Many people think it's just slick and exploitive. I don't think so. I think that it is once again about how can we examine these characters who are both cliches and at the same time driven by very, very recognizable human feelings. And as you follow them out, they get really strong. The characters get really rich, and they will spend 10, 15 minutes sometimes just exploring a character conflict or exploring a character's troubles, and then moving around. So that, yes, there's some cliches parts. There's lots of sex and music and rock and roll and well, not rock and roll, but sex and drugs and lots of things to keep people interested. But what the point is I believe the characters and how they are going to develop. Okay, very, very briefly. When I watch. I commit a lot of my evenings to watching. You got to put in the hours. I will say that. But you can find time now and then. Very briefly, because the original question that this was provoked by, they actually asked, can you recommend movies, books, plays that explore character? You get into books and plays, we're talking about the entirety of literature. So I'm just going to handle a couple of faves to offer you. As for in theater, Angels in America is a remarkable piece because, once again, it's not conventionally accessible. It's not like the character. Some of the stuff is wildly imaginative. And yet at the same time, as you watch it, because it's long, it's 7 or 8 hours, the characters develop. The characters develop sometimes in fantasy form, but these are people who are breaking down for various reasons. And it's about the way that characters embody and struggle with ideas. It's quite a remarkable thing by Tony Kushner. There's an old play called Equus by Peter Shaffer about a psychiatrist dealing with a teenager who has blinded a group of horses. And the question is, why? And what does that mean? And what does it mean for the psychiatrist to be dealing with the need to help this boy, but at the same time, in many ways, the psychiatrist fears that he's taking away his soul by taking away his illness. It's his trauma. It's really a phenomenal play. Very different. Follies. It's a musical, a failed Broadway musical at the time, which has since become legendary because it is about a reunion of people who did these big vaudeville shows 30, 40 years before. In the 1970s, that form of art is dead. Those people have moved on and they come together for a reunion in the theater where they worked because the theater is about to be torn down. And it just takes place in one night in which you see these musical numbers. Half of the musical numbers are their old types of music, and half of the musical numbers are explorations of what's happened to these four characters, these two couples who met when they were young in this theater Well, two of the women were in the theater, and two of them, the two men who were dating them. And what happens is, as it's going on, some of the musical numbers are explaining who they were and how they ended up married to each other in these two couples. And it builds in their conflicts to this musical sequence in which each of the characters sings a song, which is a vaudeville number, but at the same time is an explosion of their character, in which their heart of their character is expressed in a cliched musical theater form. It's freaking brilliant. It's an unbelievable tour de force of theatrical form, musical form, and character conflict. It's really you have to listen to the music and read the script, but it's great. And finally, among plays, this is really interesting because it's about characters who don't exist. It's about two characters who are in Shakespeare's Hamlet. They are side characters, and their basic purpose in the play is they are sort of double dealing on Hamlet. So Hamlet gives them a letter and says, take this to this guy, to this other king. And they take it to him, and the letter says, execute these guys. So basically, it's a story of these two people who are going to be executed for somebody else's story. They are fictional characters trapped in someone else's play, being driven to their deaths for no good reason, except that this other play needs them to. So it is unbelievably powerful, and yet this is about non-existent people. It's really cool. And it's just smart. It's about it. The whole beginning is this one guy's flipping a coin, and it keeps coming up the same. It keeps coming up heads, I believe. And it's like, okay, that's not possible. You can't just no matter how many times he flips it, it's always heads. And the point is that he's reckoning with the concept that they are outside of nature. They are fated, and they're trying to deal with it. It's a remarkable case of characters who are deeply human and yet an existential, philosophical, and literary problem. It's pretty brilliant. Okay, I'm going to very, very briefly check some of the things being said here. Okay, yeah, Moon Knight's okay. I'm liking it. Oscar Isaac and his character is amazing. I haven't started Tokyo Noir. I'm looking forward to that. Okay. Priorities, yes, about who has time to watch these things. I started American Gods. Priorities, I didn't have time to finish it. It seemed good when I was starting it. Watchmen, by the way, the series Watchmen is amazing. When you begin watching it, what is your criteria for sticking with it or dropping it? Will you tough it out no matter what? You know, I won't tough it out no matter what. Like with American Gods, there's often something that I'll like, but I just can't fit into the schedule, and it's just something else is more pressing. Either someone I know is involved, or someone I know loves it and I want to talk to them about it. A lot of it has to do with what my wife wants to watch, because a lot of the things we watch together, and I don't, if I have a choice between something she's going to hate and something to like, obviously I want to watch something that we'll both like. Likewise, sometimes she'll say, I want to watch this. And so, that adds to the priority level. Yes, Rita, that's a challenge for a lot of people until you learn about subtext. But yes. The Beach by Alex Garland. Yes, that does have good characters. What really has good characters is Alex Garland's recent Hulu series, Devs, which is phenomenal. Chekhov and Gogol. Yes, you cannot go wrong with reading literature. Russian literature, English literature, French literature. Yeah, absolutely. Japanese literature, South American literature. There's a lot to read once you get into that. Yeah, very often. Yeah. Okay, so here's the deal. Last two things. By the way, just if you're looking for plays, if you're looking to understand theater, American plays from the 20th century, The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. What's nice about that is it's really understandable. You can see how the characters are unfolding in a sort of classic play about a family, a mother, father, daughter, and son, and a man who's coming to visit. a gentleman caller. But what's really cool about it is how purely crafted it is, and yet it really, really works. You learn about these people and you watch them play out their relationships. It's very solid. Glass Menagerie. And if you want to go a little further into American theater, for character, The Iceman Cometh and Long Day's Journey into Night, two late plays by the great American playwright Eugene O'Neill. Not easy. Very talky. They are plays from the 20th century. However, the whole point of all of them is to watch people at a moment when they reveal themselves and their truth, the tragic truth that they are often living. So that's that. Last two things. Just wanted to talk to some. They asked for books. There's so many good books which have characters that are worthwhile. There's two that I find because they're very accessible. They're really readable books, but at the same time, their focus is actually to understand a person, to understand an idea, a series of ideas as personified by a deeply human character. One is called The End of the Affair by the British novelist Graham Greene. It's about a love affair and why it ends. And it's actually, a lot of it is about religion, weirdly. I don't want to give away too much, just to say that it's a really great analysis of a love story, a love triangle, and at the same time, an exploration of how to tell a story and make us understand these people's feelings about abstract things. And then finally, The Great Gatsby. Easy read. Neither the End of the Affair, Great Gatsby, they're both short novels. They're both super readable. Great Gatsby is about this mysterious, wealthy, tragic man named Gatsby. And all I would say is it's really simple. It's really a very easy story to read. And it's amazing how much texture and character they get into the 120 pages. So there you go. Well, that's what happens when you're 63 years old and you've spent every day since you were 11 reading and watching things. Crazy. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad. My pleasure. I would love to come to the Nashville Film Festival and talk. You go to my website, writingforscreens.com, send me an email, writingforscreens@gmail.com. I would love to go to Nashville. I haven't been to Nashville in like 30 years. And I liked it when I was there. Jesus' Son, absolutely. That is another deeply original and human character story. Okay. Oh, hi, Drawer. How are you? I am so glad. Like I said, this list that I have just run through will now go into the description. So every single thing I talked about is going to be in the description of this video in about 15 minutes. Okay. Yes, Fitzgerald. What's really interesting about Fitzgerald and his brilliance is how accessible it is. It's really, really, really readable. Cool. Okay, good. I have run way over, but I've been having fun. So what we're going to do now is we are going to say, see you tomorrow, and go write something.